Alright, so now that you know how to do the select statement, where, group by, order by, there's another function called limit, which you put at the end. And this basically says, I want to get from the 0th result to the 20th result. So you can just skip it. You don't really have to know that at this point. But okay, let's go back to the leads table. And let's play around with this a little bit more. Okay. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get everything. Let's get the first name and the last name and the site ID from the leads table. And let's just make sure this runs. So I'm pulling all the information from the leads table, but I'm just pulling the first name, last name, and the site ID. Now if site ID is 1, I have to go to the sites table and look it up, and that's time consuming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join this result with another table, and here whenever it says 1, I want to have it say what the site name is so that I don't have to look it up. Okay, so what you do is I do the same thing, but this is where it gets a little bit more complex. So leads table, let's call that a table 1, and these are the fields from table 1, right? So I'm gonna specify that, and then let's say I'm going to left join the leads table with the size table as T2 on T1, where T1.site ID is equal to table 2's site ID. And here, instead of T1 site ID, well, let's do that. I'll also display table 2's. Let's see what the name of this is. Well, let's actually display everything in table 2. Okay, so now this is what it did. So it got the result and it joined the leads table with the site table, where leads site ID equals table 2 or site ID, and then it just joined it, right? So now I have the domain name for that lead and client ID. But again, same thing here. I have the client ID here, but I want to know if that's, I have no idea who client ID is. So if I want to do something more, what I can do is, let's just say I want to display everything in table 1, everything in table 2, and I'm going to do another join. Left join clients, and I'm going to call that T3, where T2 has a client ID, and that is equal to T3's client ID. So if I do this, and then I want to display T3, all the fields in T3, table 3, then it tells me all the lead information, right? That came from the leads table, that came from the site table, and that came from the clients table. Okay, so now this is almost a little bit too much information, so let's clean up a little bit. Oops. So I'm gonna copy this, and let's just get the lead's first name, and let's just get the client name. So T3 also has a first name, and T3 also has a last name. So the first name is the name of the lead, and this first name and the last name, because that comes from table 3, comes from the client's table, so that's the client name. Another thing that I can do to make this less confusing is I'm going to call that as lead first name, and then as client first name. So I'm just going to rename some of these. Okay, and then it worked. So let's say I want to find out how many leads I have for client, where client first name is equal to Michael. Then what I would do here is I would do where T3 first name is equal to Michael, and that should just display all the leads where Michael is the owner.